All right, cool. And then if you could do the screen share, sweetie, and then advance the slide. Okay, so the agenda for tonight, we've got a pretty packed agenda, so I'm not going to go through any Civic League business, but if we go to the next slide. Sorry. Okay, so to get our newsletter, which is packed with good information and the latest goings on, go to westgantcivicleague.org, click on that button, and then if you hit the next slide, please, Kate. The latest newsletter will show up. That's not our latest newsletter, but there's past issues, and then there's a subscribe button at the top to get all the latest and greatest information. So if you're looking for what's going on around the neighborhood in detail, go there. And on to the agenda for tonight. So we'll have an update from our partners at Norfolk Police Department. We're going to talk about a right-of-way variance that is being applied for through planning down on Orapax. We're going to have a presentation from our Chief Resilience Officer regarding Waze and navigating flooding, and then our flood wall project. And then we're going to have a conversation from our traffic safety committee from Jay and Justin are here to talk about some of the work we're doing with the funding in this year's budget that is to do traffic calming measures on Redgate Avenue. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Officer Dreher.
Appreciate it. Good evening. This is one of the slides I've stolen from the downtown community resource officer. Sorry, can you hear me now? This is one of the slides that I've borrowed from the downtown community officer. I was told people like numbers; they like seeing numbers, so kind of made this up. This is the West Ghent crime data stats for a couple different time frames. That's Orapax. Okay. And Peter's on the fritz. Yes, so we have had about 25 graduates graduate from our police academy just recently. I myself wear many hats with the department. As you guys know, I'm very busy. I got many roles within the police department. One of my roles is a police training officer. So when this last class just graduated, I had the opportunity to take on one of the new officers and train him for the last 6 days while the other sector CRO was out of the country for his honeymoon. So not only do I do that, I'm part of the auxiliary SWAT team. So like I said, and then my daily duties as CRO and whatever else, trainers without the academy, you know, throughout the department and stuff like that. So back to the crime stats. I have month to date 2022, month to date 2023. Now these timeframes are from when the West Ghent Civic League took their breaks. So it was from July 20th to September 20th. Now it's not going to be the same dates. Let me try to rephrase this. Like the third Thursday to the third Thursday of each month for each year, if that makes sense. It's going to be a couple days off. So bear with me. July 20th through September 20th, 2023. These are the stats right here in the middle from last month, from August to September. And you could read that. Everything is down significantly. We had one residential burg, and it should be non-residential. It was a detached garage where an expensive electric bike was stolen. That victim was able to retrieve his bike back by some very attentive officers that knew what was going on in the area. Saw the bike, got the bike back. I don't think there was a suspect that was arrested for it, but they were very vigilant in getting that back to the victim. Larceny from auto and larceny parts from auto, that offense right there in that column are combined. Both of those were larceny parts from auto. 2 cars were broken in over by the park over there, which is very, very dark. It's not well lit at all. But there was 2 cars that were reported broken into, even though there were reports of more than 2 vehicles getting broken into. You know, and that goes back to the saying, if it's not reported, then we don't know about it. I mean, people talk about it all day long, but this is what we get in our stats. So something happens, please call us, let us know. We'll get you the resources to report it and get it logged in.
Hey, Officer Dreer, I have
Yes.
a quick comment on that, right? So we were communicating with you after we heard about the car break-ins up on very end of Claremont up
Yep.
there. One thing that we're going to talk to the city about is looking at the street lights up there. It's really, really dark up there. So I think it was, by my count, it was 4 cars that got broken into. I think Officer Dreer saying only 2 got actually reported, which is amazing to me. Now, Kate and I walked that area that night, and I just want to say that, like, all the Kias and Hyundais, right? Is that right? Kias and Hyundais, they all had clubs on the steering
Nice.
wheels. And we looked at maybe 20 cars that night, just kind of walking. Maybe people thought we were robbing cars, but we weren't. But I only saw 1 car with something in it, right? And I think that's a good thing to, you know, we always talk about this,
Yeah.
right? And so I mean, evidently the word is getting around, and I just, you know, we got to keep harping on that, because not a lot of cars are going to get broken into if there's nothing to go in there for.
Exactly. Absolutely. So the word's definitely getting out. I know Kate was a big proponent on getting the word out, you know, especially with folks that own firearms. You know, people, I'm not saying Ghent, West Ghent residents, but I mean, across the city, we're seeing a lot of people that just mishandle their firearms and don't lock them properly, and they leave them in their vehicle. You know, a glove box is very easy to pry open with a screwdriver, at the least. So that's great that we hear that, you know, everything's being hidden at least, or taken out of the car. So month to date, 2022, you can see the numbers there. 2023 month to date, see them dropping. Correct. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So the word's getting out. Just keep passing the word. And I'm glad those residents were able to get out to, I'm assuming it was our program that we had the detective get up with those 2 car manufacturers that were passing out the clubs. You know, even though, you know, it's nostalgic, but, you know, bringing the 90s back, baby. There we go. You know, so hey, it works. It's working. So whatever works, right? So that's all I have. I'd like to introduce the newly promoted Blue Sector Lieutenant, Tim Breslin.
Thank you, Chuck. As Chuck said, my name is Tim Breslin. I'm newly promoted Lieutenant, Norfolk Police Department. I've been with the department for 15 years. Just before promotion, I had spent 8 years in our detective bureau, ranging from larceny to forensics to robbery and gangs, and also did some work in our malicious wounding squad, which is basically a catch-all for violent crimes. So that's basically where I spent my last 2 years. My head's kind of geared more towards violent crimes, but you know, like I said, I run the gamut, and certainly we need to look at every incident and take it very seriously. And along those lines, Chuck and I were in contact with Mrs. Sharrow. Pretty much, he walked in the door to my office the first day I was on, and he said, we need to talk about West Ghent because there's a rise in larcenies. And that was one thing that we went to right away. We did have a vehicle, patrol vehicles come in the afternoon hours. So if you saw a patrol vehicle cruising through the area, that was pretty much why, because we did have that recent random kind of spike in larcenies. It looks like it was kind of bleeding over from the east side of Hampton Boulevard, where we've had some other incidents. So we're trying to push that back, and it looks like, as Chuck pointed out, and you can see for those numbers, that it is working. So I just want to make sure that you all know that you know, we are working hand in hand with your Civic League, And if you have any concerns or comments, issues, definitely bring them to our attention. If you want to go through the Civic League or write to us, I can, well, unfortunately my business card still says Sergeant, but the phone number is the same. I haven't gotten my new business cards. So, but I'm happy to hand those out, and my cell phone's on me 24/7. So I'm definitely happy to be a resource for any other questions, comments, concerns you might have. All right. And thank you for the invite as well. Yes, sir.
My business card's correct. It'll probably stay like that for a while. I hope if I don't get booted out of CRO, but no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I can hand my business cards out as well if you guys need. Of course.
All right, thanks again, gents. And I'd say, you know, having Sergeant on your business card still is a good problem to have. There are worse problems to have. Yeah. So, yeah. So on to the next thing. We have Kyle here, who's the city's chief resilience officer. Two agenda topics is we had a resident interest in getting information about the Waze app and navigating, you know, the flooding, like, which is, the timing is impeccable that you're doing this tonight. And then we're going to talk about the flood wall project. So if you could, come on up. Thank you.
So this is a small crowd. If you'd like to take a packet home, then you want to get next project. And we can make it available digitally if we need to. All righty. Well, so what I'll start out by asking is, does everybody have a smartphone in their pocket? Okay. Check one, step one. Good. Does everybody have the free Waze app downloaded on your phone? Okay. About half. Okay. So that's pretty good. So it's a free app, works on Android and iPhone. Download it. When you're driving around in Norfolk, it will communicate to you in real time about flooding. We're the only city in the world that has that technology. We developed it here. And I'll tell you about that here in this presentation. So what is Waze? So it's this free app that everybody can download, and I'm going to hold the mic and walk around. It's used widely all over the world, actually. And we were the first city in Virginia to join this Waze for Cities partnership. And what that basically means is we can collect data from Waze users in the app. If you're driving around, you're telling us about a pothole or a dead animal on the road, or sometimes where the police are. That information is something that we can collect. People do use that. I kind of felt obligated, but because they can go in the app and turn it off too. So anyway, so that's basically what it is. It's an app that's been around for a long time, but Google bought it maybe 5-6 years ago. So you can go to the next slide, please. And so we've joined this Waze for Cities program, which is basically a partnership that is a two-way data exchange. Again, so we collect anonymous information. We don't know who you are. It's a cryptic, kind of number. But we can collect information about what drivers are seeing or doing in the road. We can see traffic jams. We can see all this information in the data, but we can also push authoritative data to the app. And so that's what we're doing now with flooding in real time. We can push things like, hey, there's the Ghent 5K is coming up this weekend. We can close the roads in the app. And so if people are using Waze to get around the city, it won't send them down these closed roads and you get stuck somewhere. So it's a really good thing. And I've gotten a couple other cities around here in the program, but we're the only one doing the flooding thing, which is the meat and potatoes here. So if you don't mind going to the next one, it's a pretty quick presentation because it does all the work for you. Okay. You just set it, turn it on when you're driving around. So tomorrow and Saturday, especially when the high tide comes, just activate Waze in your car and these little icons will pop up and it'll tell you it's flooded. If you use the navigation function it will actually route you around that flood so you can avoid it. If the waters are, so there's some water on the road, it's not if it's bone dry, that's one thing, but there's always going to be a little water on the road, especially in these types of storms. we've set thresholds in the system that will close the road if it goes over the curb. Basically, it's, we don't want people driving and you can't see the road underneath you. So it will close the road automatically, and it'll route you around that closed road due to flooding automatically. Yeah, so good. Next slide. No, it's sciencey. Okay, it's very smart. Flood forecasting is super complicated. It's something I used to be very highly involved with the local universities and things. I'm kind of out of that space, but we've hired an international team called FloodMap. They're out of Australia. Actually, they've developed this technology that's bringing in meteorological forecast data from the Weather Service. So the alert, everybody's phone just blew up probably half an hour ago. That's telling you that there's a storm coming, and so they're predicting that information through their forecast modeling. We consume that information because it's free by the federal government. And then it goes into some other stuff about, we can bring in tide gauge information, all this sorts of stuff, pilot into this system that they call Dash, and it can predict flooding. If you can go to the next slide, they call their system Dash at FloodMap. And they're growing in the US now, mainly because of us, but this is part of our incubator living laboratory philosophy, where we're trying to bring these types of technologies to Hampton Roads and Norfolk specifically. It works very quickly, and it's using machine learning and artificial intelligence. Everybody talks about the bad things artificial intelligence can do. It can do a lot of good things. This is one of them. Okay, it's really helping us out model flooding in a very quick way and make it consumable to the average citizen. Telling you how deep it is and things like that may not make sense to the other people, but don't drive, right? Pretty simple. We're trying to make it very simple down to the user level. Anyway, it's highly accurate. We've been testing it for a while in Norfolk in partnership with them. You can go to the next slide. And so these are some of the products that they generate. We're really, we have a 5-year contract with FloodMap now to create the Waze alerts for us in real time, do what they call nowcast modeling. And I did ask for the other 2 modules in the last budget cycle. We didn't get those. Those can really help emergency operations sort of ahead of time more. And then the postcast really helps us gather all the information we need to submit to FEMA for flood damages if something reached that level. But nonetheless, we have the middle one, Nowcast, and that is connected to Waze. That was the challenge we put out to FloodMap a few years ago, and they came up with this solution. You can hop to the next one, please. And so what that looks like, just to kind of give you a little bit of the behind the scenes, is as the storm comes across, FloodMap's going to read that rainfall information that Weather Service puts out. It's going to read the Sewell's Point tide gauge, other USGS gauges. The city has tide gauges as well, and so do the other localities. There's a lot of work kind of in that space, and it's going to ingest that information and predict based on the information that's happened in the past and what their model says. Where the flooding is going to be. And then as users are in the app, so if you've ever used Waze, you can give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Like, yes, the cop's still there. No, the cop's not. Or the flood is still there. The flood is not. You guys should have left earlier. I'm telling you. Usually they've already left by then. I wouldn't even have said it. No. But anyway, so the pothole's there, pothole's not. I mean, there's a lot of rich information in the app. But that thumbs up and thumbs down is really important. So if you're going around this weekend, use that a lot, because the model learns. It's machine learning. So the more thumbs ups it gets. Yes, I was correct in my prediction. Yes, I'm correct. Oh, I wasn't correct. It's gonna get better and better each time we use it. And so here's an example of a storm we did. You can see all the alerts that pop up and go away. The ones that have a color icon, I know it's kind of hard to see. Those are ones where we got thumbs ups on. The little red ones, nobody gave us a thumbs up on. But if you look, most of those are residential streets, right? So if you think about most users driving around, they're commuting on the major freeways and thoroughfares through the city, not the Princess Anne on West Ghent. So that's where the more data we have in these smaller streets as y'all drive around and we get the word out, the better it'll get at predicting those smaller thoroughfares. But we've got it pretty honed in on the major roads where we focus our attention. You can go to the next slide. I just got a couple examples here of what it kind of looks like behind the scenes. So you can see the tide go up. This is back in this is a 2020 event. It goes down and comes up. And this is highly granular. You can zoom in and you can see every little pixel. So every 3 feet on the ground, we know how deep the water is. This 3 feet, this 3 feet. So it's just very rich information coming in, large, think big data. data science, all those new words that are out there. So you can go to the next slide. That's just kind of what that looks like. Here's what this looks like in action. This is a storm that we already had once we started the study, but we gave them the data to do this. But you can see the orange ones are ones that, caution, be careful driving on. When they turn red, that's where we would close them in the app. And so we wouldn't want folks necessarily driving on it. And so you can kind of see as the tide goes up and down how that works. You can go to the next slide. Just more examples. I mean, we literally went out with tape measures to confirm how deep that the model was saying versus what was really happening. These are things we've been doing for a long time, but this is definitely the most sophisticated and fastest modeling that in Norfolk that we've seen. So really happy about the products. About the model says 10 inches, and you can see they're about 9.5, 10 inches on the thing. I mean, the data that we're using in the background, is within that margin of error. So we're really, really pleased with the results. You can go to the next one. And so on that event, that same one I just showed, we had about over 5,000 alerts that we sent out. So we're hitting a lot more people than we ever have before. And about half of those, roughly, we did get some kind of feedback. The more feedback loop, the better. And so you can go to the next one. So multiple people give feedback on the same event. That's why not, the percentages may be low. What's cool about Waze too, we don't want you to do this while you're driving. They're big on safe driving, so they'll disable your ability to type in the app. The good thing about Waze is that you can put in these notes. So you could say, hey, the left side of the road, Hampton Boulevard is dry here, it's wet there. Those types of things. You can see examples of what people put in for some of these. You can go to the next one. Okay, so most recently, this is the last one on Waze, basically just showing you how kind of awesome it is. But we sent out 395 Waze alerts at the end of August. This was a rain event, a rain bomb kind of thing that happened in the morning. And those are very hard in an urban city to model. And so we really need more and more folks using it during those events. But basically, almost half of those, almost double of those, we're starting to get the thumbs up on. So that's a really good sign that folks are using it more, the word's getting out, and there's been some press on this type of stuff. So yeah, timing's great. This weekend is going to be a chance to test the app out. Let us know how it's doing, good or bad, because we want to know and we want to make it better over time. And I think that might be my last one. I can, just more examples of like if you have an info panel on your car, Waze will show up there, and then you can kind of see those examples. And that's that example. Sorry, I forgot how many slides I had, but you can go to the next one. That's just showing you an example of how it routes you around. So Waze has a routing function just like Google Maps, and it does a really good job at getting you around the flooding when that's the case. So this is just me testing it out in the office. Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
For the thumbs up or thumbs down, if there's an alert that says there's a flood on a certain part of the street, we do give it a thumbs up if indeed there was a flood.
If you see water and it's flood.
But thumbs down if there's not. Is that good training as well? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I did this. We had an event in the afternoon, and I pulled up Waze. I was like, oh, I got to get down Hampton Boulevard, and there are a couple areas where I think they were probably projecting it, like right on Lexan
that's
Avenue.
spot.
There wasn't any flood in there, so that would be a thumbs down at that point. Okay.
Yeah. And it'll get better. Like I said, next time it'll probably get it right as more people do that. And then there are thresholds. Like we don't want to know if just the road's wet, right? We really want some depth of that water before we send out an alert. Otherwise, the whole map would just be madness, right? So we definitely have, like, once it reaches a certain depth, we send the alert. If it goes even deeper, that's when we'll.
Actually, too. So thumbs down helps you guys because you get feedback that it's not being reported. That it's not there. It's not there. If it's there, is there any advantage to thumbs upping it?
Yeah, because it's saying it's doing the model. It's reinforcing the model, so it's going to help.
So you're helping the AI part of the machine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, but if you see a dot there already, it's going to redirect you.
It won't redirect you unless you're using the routing function. So.
Right. But it triggers the routing function as long as there's just a dot. It doesn't require thumbs up to reroute.
No, not at all. Yeah.
And then lastly, how come this is the first time I'm hearing about this? Am I the only person that hasn't heard about this? How is the marketing going for this?
I don't know. The pilot interviewed me like a year ago when we first announced it. I think our communications department sends out like pushes when storms are coming. If you haven't, they should have one coming this weekend, but we can make sure. But yeah, it's not, I don't do marketing, but I'll talk to the people that do to see if they can help us get the word out if folks don't know about it. But yeah, sure. Definitely. Thanks for letting us know. Okay.
Question.
Sure.
I know we're sticking on this a little bit longer because I know you want to talk about the other one, which is
Yeah,
huge.
it's up to you guys. Yeah.
What if we encounter flooding there's nothing? Like
You can report flooding in the after cell.
it's just
right?
like when I see Chuck.
Yeah. So if you
Okay.
go back a
right,
slide,
cool. All
I'll show you an example. If you go back a few slides, you probably can't read it where you are, but right here. So these at the bottom, they say reported by City of Norfolk. But if Scott, right? So Scott says it's flooded and it'll just, and he can say in the app, hey, there's a flood, just like he can say there's a car on the shoulder or police, but he can put that in the app. It'll say Scott or whatever your username is in Waze. And we collect that information too, and we'll give that to the model to learn. So if it misses it and there's no thumbs up or thumbs down option, we can also learn, the model can also learn from people telling it's flooded themselves. So.
And just from the chat,
Sure.
Katie Benmore said that she's heard a lot about it
Uh-huh.
and that it was on social media and the news.
Okay.
So it may be perhaps.
Yeah. I don't know if we've pushed next door, but that seems to be a pretty popular place for folks to find out about things. What was it called? Norfolk Currents. Okay. All right. I'll talk to them about that. Okay. Thanks. We'll get one out there tomorrow. Oh, it's not Norfolk City. Got it. Okay. Okay. I'm sure they're plugged into that, like Chris Jones is plugged into those guys. I can get him to talk to them. Okay. So that's it for Waze. And then I was just going to spend a few minutes talking about the project that you all have a handout for. So while they're pulling it up, this one is just a big summary of the overall project. It's gives you the phasing plan, the timeline on the back, and a little bit of information about the features that are that make up the project. And so when they get this pulled up, I'll just talk a little more finer detail about yours. There's phase one, kind of one sheeter as well that I included in there. And that gives you a little zoomed in version of the project that will affect this neighborhood. And this is just a QR code to check out the website. We're constantly trying to get new information or better information on there. So yeah, if you don't mind going to the next slide, I'll take you through a high level view of this project. So I always start the slide, but this is a partnership we've had with the Army Corps of Engineers in the city of Norfolk going back even prior to my stint at the city. But we really got to work on this in 2016 on a feasibility study for the entire city. How do you protect flooding, coastal flooding from the city? And then in 2019, the chief's report was signed by the chief of the engineers. And then we got into the Water Resource Development Act of 2020. And then the IIJA, also now known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, provided $400 million to begin this project, which costs quite a bit more than that, but that's a really good start. And that's important. That designation of a new start is really important because once they start it, they have to finish it. But you can go to the next slide. And so this is the why. If we don't do anything, map on the left, our goal is to create the map on the right. There are some nuances to the project. The Civil Works Division of the Army Corps cannot spend money or do work on a DoD facility. That's a different arm of the Army Corps. But anyway, we are working with the Navy and others on some projects to support their work, and they're really kind of behind the fence anyway. But anyway, so our goal is to accomplish the map on the right, and that's just sort of what the city could look like if we did nothing in a major storm event that happens in the future with sea level rise that we project to happen.
Kyle, if you don't mind, I interject a little bit.
Yeah.
I think what makes some people in the neighborhood nervous is the proximity of the blue in the southwest corner of the city.
Yeah, right here at
And
Lambert's Point.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
hope we're going to go into some more detail about how it relates to West Ghent, but
Gotcha. Yeah. And I can talk about that as well. So you can go to the next slide. I think that's, so there's the main three types of features for this project are what we call structural. Think of the downtown flood wall that's there today next to the Nauticus and the, and sort of right there at the edge of the water where the Wisconsin is. There's property specific non-structural. So this would be things like if you're outside the line of protection, most of these in our city are working waterfront. So like Lambert's Point is a working waterfront. Fair Winds is coming in. They're going to be doing a lot of work that requires access to the water. So they will get the option of flood proofing. And then there's also some non-structural home raising and basement filling involved. And so the project at a glance, it's $2.6 billion is how it's costed out by the Army Corps right now. It's again, a series of storm surge barriers where the rivers are, walls that flank and kind of keep the water from wrapping around those surge barriers. And then lots of tide gates for the smaller connections into the city and pump stations. We build this bathtub rim. We need to drain the bathtub because as you know, we get a lot of rain with these types of events. So we want to manage the stormwater behind the wall. And so this will do quite a bit of that as well, because we'll kind of take everything from gravity system to a pump system with this project. And then, like I said, there's some properties that the only option really, think Willoughby Spit, you just can't wall off the whole spit. It's a beach, it's dynamic geology happening there. And so basically we're offering home raising, basement filling in those types of areas. And again, commercial flood proofing would be the stuff like in the shipyards and other places that need to be an active working waterfront. So you can go to the next one. So we phase this project out and so we're starting sort of where we're leaving off with the Ohio Creek watershed project. So this is a project my office just finished, sort of this donut white hole right here. And since it was funded and in construction, when we got to this point with the Corps, we didn't need to necessarily do anything. So we are picking up there at Compostela Bridge, working to the Berkeley Bridge. That's phase 1A. And I have some zoom ins of this, but we'll go from 1 to Pretty Lake is number 2. Those are another area we've already done a lot of study as a city prior to the Corps coming on board. And then phase 3 is the Lafayette Surge Barrier. That's the largest and most expensive phase, but it also protects the majority of the city. It's about a third of the city's population and residents. Phase 4 is at the Broad Creek opening. And then the non-structural is kind of the hatching all over the rest of the map. And it's sort of site specific. Each property will have its own, unique cases that we'll have to deal with. You can go to the next one. This is what the timeline looks like. So this is going to be a decade, probably plus project. We're trying to stay on the 10-year timeline. And so we will be hopefully in construction in next calendar year in 2024 on phase 1A. Again, that's Berkeley to Compostela. And then we're going to work from there to the Town Point Park area, kind of leave the existing flood wall in place because it's been there a while and it's having a lot of benefits. So we'll save that for last because we want to protect areas that don't have anything. And then we'll go from the existing downtown flood wall on the other end of it near Freemason over to this part of the city. We'll put a surge barrier at the Hague up here, and then flanking walls will work their way around, encompassing all of West Ghent, and ultimately it'll tie into the railroad tracks up at Lambert's Point. And so that's where we are on the timeline. So you're looking for your section, Ghent to Town Point Park. We're going to start designing in 2025, in construction hopefully in 27, and be completed with the segment. If you go to the next slide, you'll see kind of a zoom in of that schedule and a little bit more zoomed in of the map. So this is the area, I don't know if folks online can see, but this is the Hague. So we'll put a surge barrier there. And then this flanking wall, which will protect the hospital complex, EVMS and everything as well. So it's a critical piece of the project, lots of critical infrastructure behind it that we want to protect. And so you'll be coming in what we call phase 1C. Once we're done with the first 3, we will go back to the downtown flood wall and replace it eventually with a higher standard wall, higher standard of design. So we got a ways to go. There's plenty of time for for me or someone on my team to come back and keep you guys updated on everything. And you can go to the next one. I'll just, it doesn't really address you guys, but you can see just the extent and the complexity of phase 1A is quite large. This is the substation that's feeding all of downtown and probably parts of Ghent and things like that. So we're starting here, and a lot of that is to protect what we're also doing and the investments we're making in the St. Paul's area, in Tidewater Gardens, and really the communities north. So the zone of protection here, or flood reduction, is far extends beyond this map. It basically goes all the way to the railroad track. So you're talking about Huntersville, all those neighborhoods are part of what's protected in phase 1A as well. And so we're working on improving some of our maps and labels just so it's a little more clear what's, the line of protection is by the water, but it's really goes much deeper into the city, what's being protected by that. So I think one more slide, that's the question. So I'll take questions and go ahead.
Kate, if you don't mind going back to
I'm gonna go back to the zoomed in of your, right here.
Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
I know we're not even in design yet.
That's right.
For West Ghent.
Mhm.
But I will share, I've talked a lot with Mike with Fairwinds Landing, and
Yeah.
I know that you've had some conversations with him.
That's right.
He's making a huge investment down here. So obviously he's sharing with me what he's hearing.
Mhm.
So my understanding is the wall is going to, the protective barrier is going to run basically along the ERT on Redgate Avenue, and then it goes down into Chelsea. And
Right.
there's some debate on where it will be within Chelsea. Is that a accurate statement? And I apologize if you're not as intimately familiar with our neighborhood as we are, so I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, I'm pretty familiar. I'm a map guy by trade.
Yeah.
So I know the area well.
Yeah.
So basically we're going to hug the property line of Fairwinds in that development so that everything in Chelsea is protected or is behind the system. So we will hug their property. The wall will actually be on that property. There'll be an easement along it that's sort of on either side of the wall for us to inspect it and fix if something happens. And so we've coordinated that with Fairwinds. There'll be gate openings for their property. They're always open until the storm comes. And we've talked to them about their plans for the site. It will be a working waterfront. Their building's going to be just as high as the wall. So we offered, or we asked if they want us to put the wall around that facility. They said no, they're good with what they're doing and they're plowing ahead with it. So we are, I think we're in a good place for that area for now. We have met with some of the business groups down there. Myself and the city manager met back in the spring with them to talk about the Fairwinds project and their traffic concerns. That was the majority of the discussion, and their parking and everything. So yeah, it will basically hug along the shoreline, similar to where the trail is. And wherever those two intersect, actually, the trail will be incorporated into the design. So phase 1A, there'll be a levee. And when you build a levee with the Army Corps, they need a road on top of it to inspect the levee. So that road's going to be the trail as well. So it'll be a public access, and we will maintain the trail and the Cannonball Trail behind Waterside District, the Sheraton, that promenade that's behind there next to the water. It's all getting basically lifted up. And so it'll be the flood protection, almost like at the boardwalk at the beach where you're just walking along. You're actually walking on a flood wall when you're at the boardwalk on the beach. So it'll be like that, where you're up on top of it. So you're not looking into it. So yeah, if we can do a design like that in some of these areas, and then there'll be lots of, this is kind of following the trail along here, but basically it's the inside edge of their property that the developer's doing.
Anybody else have any questions? Anything from chat?
Nothing from the chat.
Kyle, really
Yeah.
appreciate you coming here for this.
Yeah, and we'll be back. Like I said, there'll be lots of time for y'all to provide concerns or input on it. And we will also be holding some workshops around the city. We're gonna maybe kick some off in October and November, where we'll have public meetings kind of dedicated just to this project, so that if you're missing a Civic League meeting or whatever, we'll try to accommodate different times of day, during the day and at night, for folks to come out and hear about the project more. and provide input on it. So we'll share that with the neighborhood services department, and they'll get the word out to all the civic leagues, so y'all can spread it around. Huh?
If you could go back to our presentation, 1 sec. Go back to our presentation. September. To the right. Nope. Yeah. And then hit slideshow at the top. Okay. Sorry about that. And if you could go to the next, get to our slide about keep going. Whoop, no, go. I guess it's up. Sorry. Somehow we got past it. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So a lot of you are familiar with Sam Woomer. He's also known as Dogtown Sam. He runs Dogtown down there in Chelsea. He is applying through the planning department and the planning commission. Through context clues, I've inferred that he has purchased that warehouse in Chelsea, the Welcome to Chelsea warehouse, and he's applying to put an ADA ramp onto the front of the building there along the sidewalk. And so we wanted to give this is a rendering, obviously, of it. And then the next slide is a drawing. And so part of the planning process is to get Civic League input. So if have, anything, if you have any, concerns about this ADA ramp, which if I'm channeling Sam here a little bit, I would say that this warehouse can't be turned into a viable retail space without this ADA ramp, is the long and short of it. And so they're asking to do a variance to impede in the right of way, also known as the sidewalk, to build this ramp. If anybody has any concerns, we'll advertise this via social and get feedback, and then we'll get the Civic League's feedback to the planning department. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns on this? He hasn't divulged that to me yet, but I think that's a fair, assumption there. If you look at the next slide, it has basically, I think, 3 different retail spaces laid out, or 3 or 4 different retail spaces laid out in there. So I think it would be a good thing for Chelsea and for West Ghent by extension for him to start something up in there. All right. Now we're going to turn things over to our traffic safety committee and talk about the work that they've been doing. So I'll give a little bit of the background here. We, as a Civic League board, advocated and to the city, to Courtney and Andrea, and with the transportation department with the city to start addressing the traffic safety along Redgate Avenue. The city was very, very supportive and wrote into the budget for this year. How much? There's debate as to how much it is. It's a lot of money, $150,000 to $200,000 to put in traffic safety measures along Redgate Avenue. And so we asked for volunteers, people that wanted to get involved, and several of the neighbors around the neighborhood have gotten involved and have absolutely taken that bull by the horns and have come up with ideas. They've met with John Stevenson and Keith Darrow of the transportation department, kind of one volley back and forth of ideas and discussion. And this phase of this conversation is for them to present where that conversation stands and get resident feedback on the current set of ideas so that we can go into and decide on projects and the city can move ahead with West Ghent input. So without much.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, everyone. I'm Jay Boyles. I live on the 1400 block of Armistead Bridge Road. I don't know if Justin Dale is out there in Zoom land, but Justin, if you're there, please feel free to chime in at any point. So we have very different kind of data that we were working with. Not a lot of AI, but a lot of people power because you all responded to the traffic safety survey that we sent out, and we took the data from that. About half of the responses were related to Redgate Avenue, speed and safety and pedestrian safety along there. We took that, and then we went out and we walked all of Redgate, looked at each intersection, we've numbered them. Some of the intersections didn't need as much attention, others did. So you'll see throughout the presentation that we've kind of anchored on a couple of them, and that's what we took to the city. Yeah, that's good. So, given the limited budget that we have for this tranche of traffic safety improvements with the city, we ruled out a couple things like blinking pedestrian crossings. Mostly the maintenance and upkeep on that is too expensive for the current budget. Also, for just to preempt any questions, we all love speed cameras and the enforcement that brings. But we're informed that that's only used at the state level for certain types of specialized zones. But pretty much everything else is on the table, and with everything from additional signage and paint, for crosswalks and such, to different kinds of bumps and humps and things like that. We had a good conversation with the city about the types of kind of raised things in the road that can cause the most noise disturbance for residents. So we're working with them to try to minimize any implementation that's going to cause additional problems if it's mitigating others. But these guys are the experts, and they proposed ideas to us that we hadn't even thought of. So I think we have a good way forward. We just want to solicit some input from you all tonight and kind of give you an idea where we're at. So we'll kind of work our way from east to west here along Redgate. This first intersection with both Greenway courts there on either side. This is a really interesting one. It's also very near and dear to a lot of people's hearts because there's that playground right there. A lot of families crossing Redgate and Greenway to get to and from the playground. So essentially that yellow striped area in the middle, it's kind of this big wide open space. And it gives the impression both to bikes coming off of the ERT that are going eastbound, and then traffic coming in from Hampton westbound, that there's just all this space and they can pick up their speed and just kind of go wherever. So so a couple of initial recommendations. I think this was Justin's idea originally, and the city recommended it as well, was to create a raised landscape median where that yellow striped line is. And that'll help define the lanes and slow traffic. The city also said that they can mark that street parking on either side of Redgate. They're right where that number 1 is, and across from it, that you can actually park on both sides. But if they paint it, it makes it a little better defined. And then, yeah, that works great. Yeah. So we kind of came up with this 3-phased plan. The first is to put some additional stop signs in. The second is to repaint that striping there, that crosswalk that goes across Redgate, and then to add a crosswalk across Greenway, leading up into the playground. And then the city said that basically any crosswalk that they're working on, they have to get the ramps up to ADA compliance, and there's some technical things they have to do there. Bigger expense, but we were really pleased that they were invested in really working to make this a lot safer. And then the third phase is that raised median. You can see they kind of drew some notional trees there, so there'd be a landscape space there that either the city maintains or we work out some kind of arrangement.
One thing I want to preface here that I forgot in the initial conversation that you took part in is, the ERT and West Ghent are kind of like the same thing, right? I mean, so we interfaced with Kindra. We had a call with Kindra and the ERT to make sure that, one, they knew that we were working on this, and two, to start to get ERT input on a lot of these projects. And so, one of the biggest things that people have brought up is like when I'm riding down the ERT towards the east and I just spill out into this giant asphalt pad at the end of the trail, like, what do I do now? And I think we've all experienced people just kind of like veering across Redgate and doing various random things. And so that would be a consideration that we're keeping strongly. And then as he goes further down, I mean, basically every single one of these has an ERT
Absolutely
aspect to it.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up, and appreciate connecting us with Kendra, and we hope to stay linked up throughout the process. Any other questions about this intersection? All right, then let's move down to Redgate and Orapax. there are a couple of intervening intersections where the city has already taken a couple of corrective actions, removed some shrubbery that was blocking stop signs, things like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. So I think with 2 and 3, one of them was just that shrubbery issue that they took care of, and then the other one, it was Claremont and Redgate, and I think it's a 4-way stop, so it's not as big an issue. Yeah. So going to Redgate and Orapax, this is a tricky one, right? There's a lot of foot traffic around the businesses, around the ERT crossings, and people, going in and out of Chelsea to the restaurants, things like that. Then of course there's a lot of vehicle traffic, both for for MHI and for Norfolk Southern coming in and out of there. So the city's initial recommendation was to put some additional stop signs in, make it a 4-way stop, and to put some bump outs. You can see those called out in the green. Yeah, actually, if we just go to that second slide, this is a great representation of kind of the phased approach that we talked about with the larger committee. So make it a 4-way stop. After that, put an additional crosswalk on. And then to put the bump outs on the western side. Again, this is from the city. Their thinking is that kind of funnels traffic a little bit, draws people's attention visually to that narrow space, gets them to slow down. So that would go in front of Orapax restaurant and then the flower shop. And I think that the ERT was interested in making some improvements for this area as well, either in the form of additional signage, striping, or one of the yellow posts that goes at the intersection. Anything else on this one? Any comments?
I'm not sure if you can hear me. I'm dialing in via Zoom. I just had one comment about this option number 4, as far as the bump outs being on, I guess that's the western side of the intersection.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the traffic is related to coming, I guess, western on Redgate, making a left to head down towards the shipyard. And a lot of the problem from that intersection comes from kind of that direction. So I wonder if there's a consideration to put the bump outs on the opposite side of I guess that's Orapax, on the other side of Redgate, to kind of slow traffic that is moving west, and then making the left onto Orapax to head down towards the shipyard.
Okay, yeah, that we could definitely take that back to the city. And I think part of it was they were going to put a stop sign right there, and there might be some. I know. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that one, because initially they had talked about putting a bump out kind of on the Orapax to turning right onto Redgate. They're the southeastern side, and they kind of thought about it again and came back with the other. So we can re-engage on that. Not as bump outs are definitely like their idea. Something that they're still trying to understand, kind of experimenting with across the city. So we'll definitely re-engage on that. All right. So this next one is actually kind of a work in progress. It's pretty neat. So if you're headed westbound and then northwest, staying on Redgate and passing the tennis courts on the right, there's really an opportunity to pick up a lot of speed there. Conversely, if you're heading southeast, it's been noted that often traffic will turn into the wrong lane there on Redgate and try to get up by the restaurants and go down on the southern lane where they should. So a couple of issues there. There was some obscured signage, but the city already put some additional signage in on that westbound lane, right, kind of that point closest to the tennis courts. But there is more work needed to define the intersection a little better. So if you go to the next slide, you can see what the city's proposing is putting the yellow lane lines, even with some mini skips, some little bumps there to help prevent people from going down the wrong way. Signage is already done, and then I think we were also talking with the ERT about putting some additional signage there. Oh, and one other thing is the putting the first of the speed tables or humps on the straightaway, just to the north of where that photo chip ends, beyond the Langley intersection. There's already a speed limit sign there, but just kind of reinforces the speed table.
And the speed hump is a big resident feedback thing. I think you're going to get that to Wayne. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Steal your thunder.
Yeah, so there are a couple of opportunities to put speed humps and tables in. Tables are more expensive, but they have the least noise associated with them. So a hump, the placement is going to be more important. When you're putting it closer to the tennis courts, so it's further away from people's houses, not as much noise, or concentrating on the other side of the. Okay, so moving into the straightaway, and we're almost done here. The straight section, so the city proposed, I think, see 3 different points there, potentially for tables or humps on both sides, both directions of the road to slow traffic on that straight stretch where especially at shift change in Norfolk Southern, the fact can really pick up speed and yeah, it's safety as well as noise. So one thing they noted is that if you're going to put something all the way across the road, you have to put a physical barrier on either side, so that the vehicle and sometimes the traffic doesn't swerve around it, to avoid hitting it if they're going fast. So that's a little bit more involved, and there'll probably be some pricing with the city about how many of those and whether it's a hump or a table they can put in there. But we are tracking that there's potential noise issue, and we want to take that into consideration for the folks that live along that stretch. Any comments on that piece? Okay. Lastly, the Wayanoke intersection by the Mallory. This is tricky because it kind of threefold, right? You get a lot of foot traffic in and out of the neighborhood just on Wayanoke. You've got people coming in and out of the Mallory, and then you got the ERT crossing right there. Plus, that's really the entrance. So what the city is proposing is stop sign and with our recommendations too, stop signs both directions on Redgate. Painting the ERT crossing across Redgate there, and then the city would eventually like to put a out in that southeast corner. It's a residence with an outbuilding, and just to build that out a little bit, and then essentially slow the turning speed. People turn right off of Redgate onto Wayne, with another speed table. Just again, just kind of on the north side of that chip there. You can see that becomes Norfolk Southern property. All right. Any questions or comments on that piece? Lastly, kind of our next steps. We're soliciting feedback here tonight. Obviously, you can still respond to the traffic survey or the feedback email. Cities, we're going to go back to the city soon with the feedback, and then they'll draw up the preliminary drawings and start talking actual costs and timetables, things like that. I should note that also in the survey and in some of our discussions as a committee, one committee like Azalea and Claremont in that area, that intersection has come up. We've got our eye on that. We'll see how the pricing works out for the proposed Redgate measures, and if there's money left over, we can start looking at that and come back and discuss again. Similarly, if this is a success, we can pursue a similar grant with the city in a future fiscal year. We can start looking at some of those concerns within the bounds of the neighborhood, such as Azalea and yeah. Lastly, they're asking for feedback on the gate arm into the Midtown Tunnel. So we're happy to carry that back to them as well. Any questions or comments based on anything I said? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I can't thank Jay, Justin, and anybody else that's involved with the traffic safety committee that that started on all this. I mean, it's just been really, and to see us ask for folks that have largely not been involved directly with the civic league, jumping in, spending so much energy, and then just such a professional reaction to working with the city and getting this thing going. I think it's going to be a win for the neighborhood, and it's just awesome to see. So we love when people want to get involved, and we can keep it narrow. We can, you can get involved. My term as president is up here at the end of the year. If you want to get involved in a more broad-reaching way, yeah, I mean, secretary now. Yeah. So yeah, I just really appreciate it. And so with that, I open it up for any last minute questions. We did really good tonight. We are at 1 hour, and we did a lot of substantive conversation tonight. If anybody wants to ask questions or have any comments about just anything in general about the neighborhood publicly, like in this forum, we can do that right now. Or if you'd like to talk to us afterwards or privately, we can do that as well. All right. Otherwise, thank you for being here.